All right, I'm going to do a few videos on troubleshooting the downswing move now that we've been able to try it on enough golfers to kind of see what their tendency is and some of the things that they're leaving out. But before I get to that, the first troubleshoot, I want to explain what an anatomical absolute is, or what body movement laws are and why it's different than traditional instruction. So basically, here's your skeleton, all right? So what the elbow does, what the wrist does, what the shoulder does, they all have a function, and we can't make them do something that they are not designed to do. So taking that to the downswing move or the transition. So let's say your back is to the target. You can put your arms anywhere you want. That's why we have so many different golf swings. I mean, look at Matthew Wolff and Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, you can stick your arms anywhere you want. The one thing that we know that every golfer needs to learn how to do is to move his rib cage. It's not so much what he's doing with the arms, it is that rib cage needs to rotate and get your back to the target. I have what's called the TG takeaway move that I founded back in 2003, where you take the shoulder blade, you can actually move the rib cage and make it move, and the arms by driving the shoulder blade down. I'll do some videos on that later. But the question you want to ask yourself, or you can ask while you're watching this video right now, is where can I move from to initiate the downswing move? What does initiate the downswing move mean? Well, it definitely means we want to get to our lead leg, our lead side. So we're all in agreement of that. So leaving out hip rotation, leaving out all of that. If I'm in this position, so I'm going to bring in a little hip turn there. So here the pelvis is square, hips is pelvis, all right? I'm just going to take the arms right out of it, all right? Where can I move from to get my body over to the left leg if I'm more on the right? Well, number one, this is the bone I need to move. This is what moves our weight from right to left. So I know I need to meet this bone. How many different options? How many different ways can I? There isn't anything in the arm or the shoulder blade that can move me, shift my weight to the lead leg. So we can X that out. Is there anything in this hip socket that can make that happen? How about the knee? No, the knee is a hinge joint. The knee joint isn't necessarily, actually, it can be accompany the movement, but you can't make the knee joint make you go to the left. How about the ankle and the foot? So the ankle and the foot, the answer to that would be yes. If we're going to go through all joints, if I take my foot and then I tippy toe, let me show you from the side view. If I did that, that's motion coming from my ankle. Can you see how that moved me over to the left side? So that's an option. The only problem with that option is it allows your head and everything to go with it. So everything's going to move as one piece. So it's an option, but we're going to run into swing faults in the downswing if you use your ankle. So for now, we're going to take the ankle out of it. Even though we could use it, we're not going to use it. So what does that leave? That leaves pelvis and rib cage, because these joints in the extremities will not help you get over to your left side. So for a golfer, you shouldn't even be thinking about your arms and hands and legs and all that kind of stuff for the downswing move and transition to get to that lead leg, because there isn't anything in those bones that's going to give you any help. You have to know how to shift from the torso. So now we're down to two options. You can take this pelvis and just move it left. That's what I did for years. I would just, for 21 years, everyone agrees, I would shift and go this way, all right? So you can see my hips are automatically moving. That's probably just a pattern, but they actually don't have to do it. I could just kind of move over to the left side, all right? The downswing move that I discovered is using the rib cage. And the rib cage is so important because gravity works from the top down. So if I take my rib cage, or let's put it this way. If somebody had a sword and they were going to cut somebody right there, they were going to come and they were going to take the sword and they're going to cut them in half. Which direction would the rib cage and the upper body fall if the force of movement was coming here? Clearly, this pelvis and legs would move this way and the rib cage would move the other. Likewise, if the force of movement came this way and it was to cut through, that force of movement would cause the head to move this way and the pelvis the other direction. So that's why using the rib cage is awesome. The other thing that the rib cage does when we use it is it automatically, as the hips are moving, so I want to show you that split. If I do that, I'm not going to come over the top. And the reason I can't come over the top, so let's look at it from this way. If I move on the rib cage, there's no possible way if I have a club in my hand, there's no possible way for me to come over the top and make that move. There's not. The only way to come over the top is if I move my arms and my rib cage and my shoulders. So if my back's to the target and I go this way, where's that club going to fall? It's going to fall into the slot. You're going to be coming more from the inside. So once again, if I move that way, I would have to begin to unwind my shoulders, pull the club down with my arms and hands. That's how we end up, because my shoulders are unwinding. So let me show you that from this view. If I use my arms and shoulders, can you see that where that club is now? If I unwind my shoulders. So I'm not going to move my rib cage as far as rotational, but if I push right there, my head's going to move back and my hips are going to go forward. So if you're talking anatomical absolutes, you got two options. You can either consciously try to shift your weight with the lower body, or you can move from here. There's no other options that we have as golfers. Obviously, this is by far superior because it gives us everything that we've ever wanted in the downswing move. The hips are automatically at impact, what you guys would call open. For most golfers, it's a 45-degree hip turn to the left, if not more. So that is an automatic. So you don't have to try to rotate your hips. You don't have to try to pull the club into the slot. You don't have to try to put your shoulders in a specific position with the downswing move. You don't have to try to shift left. It is shifting you left. That's the whole point of the downswing move, is that this move does all of it for you, particularly if you're starting with that rib cage in this position. So everything begins to unwind and go the opposite direction once you shift to your left. So knowing that there's only two places that we can move from to even make a downswing move, that's got to be a huge help. Stop talking about the legs, stop talking about the arms, stop talking about dropping the elbow down into the slot. Let's talk about how all of those things happen. And we've got two ways to make it happen. That rib cage move horizontally happens to make all of it happen at the same time. So that's the beauty of it. And I don't think that in the future I'm going to discover anything new, because there's only two ways to do it, and that's it. So this is what I want you to do. I'm going to challenge you. We've heard a lot of times that the downswing is like skipping a rock. So what I want you to do is get in front of a mirror and skip a rock. And skip. All right? So can you see how I automatically do this? So the question is, am I pulling my hip to the left, or am I actually starting that skipping the rock move by doing this? How is that happening? So we all move that way when we skip a rock. So what I want you to do is get in front of the mirror and then feel and see is it just you moving your hips left and turning, and there's no, what I want you to do is try to skip the rock without doing this, without collapsing in. And I want you to see that ends up feeling like an all arms motion. But if I go here, that's what made me get to my left side. Boom, and now I can skip that rock. It's just like throwing a ball. So becoming familiar with this region of your body, especially using your lats, is super important, that you understand you only got two options. You're a golfer. You need to own your swing. Which downswing are you going to do? Are you going to just try to learn how to shift left, losing your pelvis, or are you going to learn how to use your rib cage? Those are the only two options you have. What we do know that great athletes don't do, they do not use their arms. Their arms are always following, they're always trailing the lead of that powerful coil and coil motion that only comes from the torso. I'm going to define it a little better when I say torso, specifically rib cage and pelvis. That's it. That's all we have. Those are the only options. So that should be a lifesaver to golfers who are jumping all over the place and watching all these different videos while teachers describe the observations about a great downswing. Then when you're doing body movement laws, we don't really care about that. We're going to trust that's going to happen, and video doesn't lie. Learn that move. Learn the move, and then look and see where your hips are at impact. If you're completely off your right side, if the club dropped down into the slot, if you had a good impact position, all you have to do is learn one move and see if you get all those other things that has been talked about for 100 years in golf. This is the magic. There's no other place that you can move from. Anybody who wants to challenge that, I completely open to challenging it, but you got to tell me where you're going to move from. You got to pick a bone, because all we are is a rack of bones moving. So you've got to know where you're going to move from and the direction the bone's going to move. And then we can go from there to see, is that actually a viable option for the downswing move? Thanks.
Hi, Alison here. Thanks for watching that clip. And if you enjoyed it and you're interested in scheduling your own one-on-one Zoom lesson, just click the link below. Thanks.